All right. My name is Luis Cabrera, and I'm joined here today by
Jesse Watson.
this is Jesse Watson here,
You know,
and we're here to be talking about self-improving while you're at college. So Jesse, first I would like to ask you, and this isn't an interview, this is a discussion. But first I would like to ask you, how would you feel college affected your ability to self-improve?
self improve.
Yes,
Um,
in any way.
I feel like well, I definitely been like trying to self improve like even in high school,
Hmm.
but I think college has let me experience new things.
Nice.
New things, and since I experienced new things, I found out new things about myself that I can improve. So it's like a lot of like when you put yourself in different situations, you realize new things about yourself that you can improve or that it's like probably you should probably keep doing.
If you don't mind, could we talk about these new things that you might have learned about yourself?
New things.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'm not really a party person.
No.
Like I'm not really a party person, and I shouldn't try to be a party person. Like
Okay. Did you find yourself wanting to be a party person when you came here, and then
I
realizing maybe that's not you, and then backing off?
um yeah, and I didn't really want to go to parties because of like partying in general, but just to connect. And I think
Yeah.
like after I think having that whole arc of me like trying to party and not working out, I realized like you can connect in different ways than just like
Mm-hmm.
going out.
100%. In fact, I would even argue that like parties isn't the best way to connect if you already feel like good about the people that you know and the people that you're with. That like, if anything, parties might be more fun to go out with people that you've already connected with rather than go out to make new connections, which you can definitely do too. But I feel like everybody is in a state where it's not as easy to do that anyways.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
you can't find love in the club.
You know what they say. Wise quote from Jesse: "You can't find love at the club." Write it down. All right. So for me, I feel like part of it, what happens to everyone. You come here and you almost see yourself and you see others in a slightly different light, just in the way that like we're all kind of like here and we're all kind of like free.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Um, I feel like it does allow you to see yourself from a different perspective, like in a way that you said, where you can learn more about yourself. I feel like yeah, that definitely makes sense. And if I try to think of things that I learned about myself, I don't want to spend time trying to like think about it too deep right now, but there definitely are some things, right? But yeah, if it comes to mind, then we'll revisit that. Okay. So next, I want to talk about books.
Books,
So
yes,
something that I learned about Jesse here is that he reads or has read, but other than that, he does see value in reading,
yes.
right?
Reading is fundamental. It's amazing.
So I was talking about reading with Nadia the other day, and I was yeah, I was thinking about it from a really interesting perspective, and you let me know if you thought about it like this before. But the difference between like reading and other forms of like media, right, is that like let's say like a movie, right, like often fictional.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say a podcast, often partially scripted.
Mm-hmm.
A book written, rewritten, thought out. Like had to get reviewed multiple times. Like a lot of times, the words that you find in books are often more thought out than others. And if you go as far to as publish them, then it's something that's been revised a lot of times. So I think that alone, there's value in that. What do you think?
I think I agree. And like a book is very like grounded and very real. It comes from like a real person. So
Yeah,
with all other media, but like it's kind of like a diary that's gonna
that's
publish.
that's a good way to think about it too.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like I agree.
Another way, because that was just like the first part. I just stopped there to add to see if you wanted to add anything.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing was that we talked about like how reading a book, some of these books, the authors are like essentially trying to mentor the
Yeah, it's like
the reader. You know what I mean? They're trying to like mentor them. And could you imagine like being able to pick out your mentor online like that? Like, like think about all the people who've ever existed.
mm-hmm.
Like, could you imagine we didn't have books and you could only hear this person talk about this only if you were live with them? right? Or only if you knew them personally,
Yeah.
or only that. Whereas we can find people who are the best at talking about certain things in all of history, have them all recorded and published, and have them all
Yeah.
at our disposal to read at any time. And we could like look into their thoughts, and I think there's a huge value in that part too. It's like if you think about it, like all the greatest voices in history can be recorded and just picked from at any time.
Yeah. And I think that there's definitely utility in that because history is human nature or just human patterns, and you can learn from yourself just looking through history and just like reviewing some of the historical figures that has passed through time. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with
Uh, I wanted to talk about the books that we have read, and I don't really like read like that, but it's something that I do see value in. Therefore, I want to like get into more.
that.
Right. So I would like you to talk about the books that you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Actually, okay. I'll tell you when I first started reading. So before I started reading, I
Yeah,
didn't
my
really
arm
think.
looked kind of big. I'm sorry.
You know,
Go on. Go
a
on.
little flag.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So before I started reading, I thought reading was like okay,
Yeah.
like I saw utility in it, but not as much as I do now. In quarantine, it really like I had nothing better to do, so I just opened up a book.
Right.
And like my dad gave me a book a few years ago. I just never really got to it, and in quarantine, I just got to it. And the first book was 48 Laws of Power, and there's a lot of that's a hot topic in the media, but like it's a really nice book about power dynamics and just the workplace in general.
Mm.
Um, Another book that's really good is Laws of Human Nature, and I feel like after reading that book, I feel like you can connect with people better because like you're learning about the commonality between like different people. Like I know people are different in general, but you're learning about what connects all you guys.
Yeah.
So yes,
You could almost say like we all start in a very similar way,
yeah,
minus like situations. I just mean like we all kind of start from a clean slate.
mm-hmm.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I do see like there being definitely some commonalities that people aren't remembering or thinking of.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I've talked about before that like it's crazy to think like every person that you see is like who you would deem like rude or mean or like I don't know, just like not a pleasant person that like they were once like a happy, like joyous like little kid.
mm-hmm.
Like we were all like that at some point, and then what overall things change and make you like who you end up being.
Yeah,
So I think like sometimes that kind of allows you to see people that you would might say like, oh fuck that, I'm like, oh this that,
yeah.
and actually going like, like I kind of wonder like
What made you like that?
yeah,
Yeah,
and that sounds almost like some people would say that, but not really like feel that. Some people would just say like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry for you. You're probably angry,"
mm-hmm.
but like to actually think about that and understand that like something to give off something negative, there has to be something negative from within.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to be
yeah.
negative. Yeah,
Okay.
nobody's going to be negative out of nowhere. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like think about any time that you said something that's not nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd have to have felt not nice.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, even like I don't know, that can be with anything, you know? So to actually like think about that and understand that and consider that for other people, that doesn't mean that they're suddenly like a nice person. It just allows you to kind of understand them and like not say like, oh, they're like this because of me. They're like this because of them, you know?
Yeah.
Things like that.
And that's like completely understandable, and like it really allows you to gain some perspective about people overall, and also extend some grace not only to people but also yourself. So like
Yeah.
when you're not doing well, it's like okay, well it's like the person that's not the person that's like deeming a negative life or negative light, they didn't want those situations to happen to them.
That is true. So
So like when you're not doing so well or you're not doing as fine, like you have to extend some grace to you because like life gets hard and
yeah.
like those situations are out of your control when things come. So yeah.
I've talked about this before. It's like when somebody's in like a bad mood or something,
Mm-hmm.
it's better to be like understanding of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say like, oh, like let's say they're in a bad mood and they're being an asshole. Right? It's not to say like, oh, they can continue being an asshole,
Yeah.
but to try to like understand why
Yeah.
and to try not to be hard on them, you know? Like, if they're, like, crossing a line, like, of course, like, make that clear.
Yeah.
But let's just say they're just kind of in a bad mood and, you know, because like, if they're in a bad mood already
Hmm.
and you try to, like, mm, if you try to inflect negative energy back at them, then that's just gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
Could you imagine you're in a bad mood and then somebody senses that and tries to put you into a further negative mood,
Yeah.
like, but instead to say like, "Oh, I understand that. Okay, like I'm not." You don't even have to say this, but to even think like, okay, like they're feeling this way because of them,
Mhm.
and just like acting accordingly from there, like already like makes such a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I feel that. I agree. Negativity is a big thing. Very big thing. And it's very well. Like as humans, like um, we're very keen on negativity because you can imagine like in the wild or like back in the
Mm,
earlier days, like
I think I know
you
what you
know
mean.
like being negative kind of helps you because you can target or you can kind of like pick up on like anything that's bad happening around you and you can improve from that. Um, and like it's kind of like a double edged sword because like okay like
I know what you mean.
yeah so like, I don't know it's kind of weird. I think I can explain it more. It's just like if you're always like I don't know like just being said like overall like you can definitely negativity is just as humans we pick up on it better than positivity. So it's like definitely
It's
contagious.
a more like distinct thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Next, we're gonna talk about self-improvement. We're gonna stay on that topic, but we're gonna continue to be talking about that in regards to working out.
Hmm.
Okay. So, let me try to lead with a question. How would you feel like how much of working out would you say is like a mental thing, and how much of it would you say is a physical thing?
Physical
And
thing.
you can talk about from when you started to now. And even if it is a physical thing only, you can say that too.
Yeah. Okay. I think. Hmm, I think it has been. No, I mean like okay. I feel like it's more physical. I don't know what. I feel like it's more of a physical thing when I was younger
Yeah.
because I have less stress.
Yep.
But like it's more mental and physical now because like I'm going through all these classes and school's been like a hassle. So like when I go in the gym, like it's a time for me like to decompress
Yeah.
and also just to get fit and just like more confident
I agree.
overall.
I
So
agree with that 100%. It's almost like I don't want to be like one of those dudes like, oh, the weight's just therapy. Oh,
yeah,
you know what I mean? But in a way, that is kind of the case, like when things are like stagnant in your life and you don't know, like, are they improving or not?
mm-hmm.
You can compare that to the gym. At times in the gym, you could be doing everything right, but that doesn't mean you're going to improve,
Mm-hmm.
right? But as long as you continue at it, like over a long period of time, even if it's like straight for a while, small bump, straight for a while, small bump, you do see the trends of improvement. Even though at every moment at the gym, you could be saying, like, I feel like I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to see like 10-pound PR every workout.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? So in real life, why would you see crazy improvements every day?
yeah,
You know what I mean? So I feel like it teaches you like a good lesson to like stay on something, even if you don't see instant results.
yeah. Like
I feel
being
like that's a big thing.
yeah, like being consistent and also like life gets pretty out of control and like when you go to the gym like you're more in control than ever.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's like it's really a big like I think it's a therapy session too. Kind of like a mini
It
therapy
kind of
session.
really is. And
Yeah.
to me, I seen yesterday on some posts that people were talking about the gym being therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And some dude commented, you gym bros can go to the gym and therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody responded back, no. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, if that's all if the gym is enough for you, then shit, nice. If you
Yeah.
also need therapy, seek therapy.
No, yeah, I definitely get it. Like, the gym is, I think it can help. Like, the gym is like, it can help you, but not like,
Oh
if
yeah,
you're
yeah,
dealing with like very emotional shit, then like the gym is like, it can only tackle so much, you know?
right.
So,
I
that's my
think
opinion.
I think the gym does give really good like mental life lessons overall, though.
Yeah,
It's not going to help you out of nowhere. It's not going to help you instantly, but that is the lesson
yeah,
that that sometimes over time, if you're persistent with things, then it'll improve.
Yeah, it teaches consistency and also patience.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it teaches that. And also, one of the biggest things that we didn't even talk about, you know why? Because we're so like used to going to the gym,
yeah,
is like the pain associated with it.
yeah,
We didn't even talk about like how hard it can be. Like if you're pushing yourself hard, like because it's that's like the standard for us.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like we go in the gym and it's not like we go like, oh my God, that was insanely hard. Like
yeah,
I might say stuff like that sometimes, like, oh, that was the hardest thing I ever done.
mm,
Right. But at the end of the day, it's just like a normal day at the gym.
yeah,
You know what I mean? There's not, but to like a beginner, that right there is scary. Like you're hurting yourself, you
mm,
know? So another thing, like it teaches you that sometimes you have to endure something that you might see as negative or it might feel negative,
mhm,
but to understand that overall for a long period of time that it's a positive.
yeah,
You know, that sometimes you have to undergo something that doesn't feel the best,
mhm,
but as long as it has a positive stimulus, then it should be good for you.
yeah, and it really teaches about like suffering. Like a lot of things you do that's worthwhile, you normally have to suffer or sacrifice something to like get to that point. So like when you're going to the gym, you're sacrificing time
Yeah,
and just comfortability.
the
So
time thing for sure. I want to talk about time a little bit actually,
yeah,
if you were done.
no, yeah,
Okay. So, how do you feel how is fitting in the gym into your schedule now that you're here, basically?
it's
D-
kind of hard.
Because it's definitely harder. I would
Yeah,
say it's definitely harder. But that's the thing, like you can say it's harder and stop going, right? Or you can say it's harder. I mean, I'm still going, but it's harder.
yeah.
So like I want to hear more about that.
So definitely in high school, I had like a lot more time to do. Do school, come home, gym, I'm good.
Yep.
Um, but like over time, like as a person, you want to gain more. You're gaining. You just want to gain more, and with those gains, I'm not like talking about food, but like with like gaining new things, gaining new things in your life, they come with responsibility. And responsibility requires time. So I'm gaining a lot of stuff like I got a girlfriend now. I got a social life. I got school going on. I got to work out. And like trying to make time for the things that I deem important, which is working out. It's definitely harder. Um, but like it just requires me to rise up to that challenge of just time management overall.
Yeah. And you know what? While you were talking, you made me think about another question.
Mm,
So, or not question, but like another point that you can like come off of if you'd like.
mm,
But isn't it interesting? So part of the book that I was reading, because we were talking about books earlier, to tie that back in. Um, I don't read like that, but one of the books that I've read, it's called, and you tell me if you heard of it. It's something along the lines of like "Awaken the Giant Within You" or something like that. Have you heard of that book? All right,
no.
well, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good, and part of it talks about how literally anything that you want to do
Mm,
or anything that you want to decide to do, or let me try to phrase this better. But basically, that anything that you want to achieve, it's because there's a feeling along with it that you want to achieve.
mm,
When you say, I want to do this, you only say you want to do this because you believe it'll make you feel like this.
mm,
If you say, I want to be that, it's because you believe that would make you feel a way that you would want to. And they were even going in to say, like, oh, if you say you want to travel the world,
mm,
well, why do you want to travel the world? And it just makes you think deeper about things like that. And you can say, oh, I want to travel the world so I can do this, this, and that. But to think about how it comes in with feelings
mm,
is pretty interesting because it says, like, another point that the book makes is that everything that you do in life, he said that these two things are true, that everything that you do in life is to gain pleasure,
mm,
and then the other thing is to avoid pain,
mm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, obviously, you're not going to want to inflict pain on yourself. And I mean real pain. I don't mean, like, for example, the gym,
Mm,
right? Even that is for pleasure. You
mm,
know, you get something good out of it, even though it's a temporary pain.
mm,
But in the long term, that everything's a pain and a pleasure. So I was going to ask you, or I was going to say, like, isn't it kind of interesting how that comes to play in your schedule? The
mm.
things that you think will make you feel like this, the things that are important to you, you give more time to, and the other things you don't, or sometimes I don't know where I'm going with it,
No, like
but
it's real. No,
it's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I get what you're saying. Like a lot of things that are important, like they're hard. Like they require sacrifice and pain, and that's hard to do, and it requires a lot of like maturity because you're like, okay, I can either play video games or get this homework done,
Yeah,
and it's like you have to think more long term. But it's like
right.
it's just just hard to do, you know.
It is, huh? Um,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I was gonna mention to you earlier before we started the stream, but we ended up saving it for the stream, was that this book even goes as far to talk about like the way that you should think about things and when you want to change to become something, right? Let's say like a common example that they use is like for breaking addictions because addictions are really like distinct and interesting human behaviors that like I don't know, it is interesting to analyze to like think about how people think, right? So when they talk about and I'm gonna use like someone who's smoking for an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
For example. So when somebody says, "Oh, I want to quit," right? And they struggle to quit, right? Like they say they want to quit, then they end up smoking again,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually they quit. They bring up a really interesting point that you have to really say, I want to quit, and you have to really believe it, and you have to really decide that. But to but not only that, but once you do that, it only takes one moment, you know? And that's something that I feel like a lot of people know but don't really like think of. Because
Mm-hmm.
people say, "Oh, I want to do this," but they don't do it instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
They can start now instead of tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is like a really like basic saying, but to actually like think about, you literally at one point you will tell yourself and you'll say it for real that I don't want to do this anymore, and you won't. But until then, you're telling yourself, "Oh, I don't want to do this," but you do. You're
Mm-hmm.
like lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But all it takes is one moment for you. And what is that one moment? That's when you, and the book talks about this, that's when you associate that's when like the negative factors outweigh like the positive factors of what you associate with this thing,
Yeah.
right? If you tell yourself, "Oh, I want to quit," but there you get too much pleasure out of it and there's not enough pain
Mm-hmm.
for you, or at least like from what you see. Then let's say you go to the hospital one day, you get fucked up, they tell you that you could almost have lung cancer. Oh, maybe that is the point you actually decide to quit. Maybe now you see, maybe that wakes you up. Maybe it puts like the
Mm-hmm.
negative over the positive stimulus that you get from it. And
Yeah.
in that one moment, you switch. Well, if you can train your mind to like switch like that, then you can like surely like tell you can surely like become the person that you want to be much easier, you know?
Yeah. Um, and like kind of piggybacking off that, like a famous philosopher, uh, Friedrich Nietzsche, he talks about like any why can overcome any how. So like as long as
Mm,
you have a big enough why, you'll figure out how to get it done.
hmm
And whether that like it's just yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that because I mean that kind of goes with the idea that like once you really believe it, that's like what your why would be. You know, if you really believe something, then it makes a huge difference. Like a lot of the times people will say, "Oh, I want to do this," but they don't really like want to do that.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of like imagine you have to go to work every day and you
Yeah.
really don't want to. Like, you know, just a weird analogy. And you really don't want to, and you just get up every day. But like when you start thinking about like, okay, like I have a family, I have to take care of them. Like my son needs like lunch. Like you start really getting motivation even from that because like you know people are depending on you, and like you know like going to work is like just important, and it's not on like how you feel. It's about how they feel now. So like,
Yeah.
mhm,
That's true. And in fact, I would say like you even find people who move like that and they say, "Oh, my family is my purpose," or
yeah,
"This is my purpose," which actually is another topic of today. We're talking about purpose.
mhm,
Um, but I would say like even though that's really good in the way that it can hold you accountable, that it's like things like that are not superior to like if you would do those things anyways. Do you know what I mean? Like I can say that I want to be healthy for let's say let's say my parents,
mhm,
right? That I want to be here for a long time and I want to grow up, make money and do things for my parents,
mhm,
right? And then let's say like God forbid something happened to my parents,
mhm,
right? Then what? You know what I mean? All those ideas that I had tied to them, if I didn't really feel like I wanted those things for myself, then there's like an issue now.
mhm, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, that makes sense. Hmm. I feel like that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
You know what I mean? But as a lot of things like you can definitely say like, "Oh, like I do this for them." And that doesn't mean that you only do this for them, but I'm just talking about like the person who like wouldn't do it otherwise. You know what I mean? That's not everybody. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you have to be like,
Mhm,
"Oh, only do it for yourself."
mhm.
You know what I mean? but like to really, really like believe this shit and to really want to do something, you like have to want to do it. And I say, and sorry before I let you continue, that even for diets, I think dieting is a really good example.
Mm,
A lot of people don't want to diet.
mm,
They're doing their diet. A lot of people they go on something really extreme. Let's
mm,
talk about the people who like diet and gain all the weight back. They go on something really extreme and they're eating in a way that they can't sustain. They're eating, let's say they're starving all day.
mm,
So they get the weight off and then now what? Well, shit, I can't live like this forever. I got the weight off, but I can't live like this forever. I'm starving.
mm,
So you start eating again. And before you know it, they're back up to their same weight. Rather than actually holding something that's important, that's good for them,
mm,
right? When you can eat like a certain amount less, right? And you can find a diet that you enjoy and you can lose weight.
mm,
Once you really enjoy it yourself, it's something that you can hold for much longer, right? If you don't enjoy it and you're only doing it for a certain reason, once you get what you want and if you still don't enjoy it over time, like you can boomerang back up. But if you actually enjoy it, or maybe not enjoy it, but you don't absolutely hate it, and you believe this is something that you can continue to do, regardless of whether it's for this or that, then it's something that's a lot more sustainable and that you can have for a while. So I'm tying that in kind of as like as an analogy for like kind of anything that you would want to do,
mm.
if that makes sense. And you talk for a moment because I need to drink water.
No, like I definitely get that. I mean, I think I mean if he's starving, like I get it. I mean, I guess you can like have like you can compromise and like you definitely want to have a goal that's like kind of like practical and like functional.
Yeah,
So I kind of get that. Um, but the thing is, like, back to the family part.
yeah,
I don't like. Okay, so the thing is, I feel like one of the factors for motivation is feeling, and love is feeling. So like, if you love your parents, it's like okay, you like that's like I think that is
yeah,
basically like they're basically tied to you, so you're basically doing it for you. Because like if you don't,
yeah.
you're gonna feel like shit. Like damn, like
I
my
agree with that
dad,
part.
he like lift up this box. I can't even lift up the box for him. Then you feel bad. So like I feel
Yeah,
like it's a double. Um, it's like kind of like a I don't know. Like I feel like that kind of ties back to it,
I agree
and
with that aspect.
like I don't know. Like and also like when you're like trying to establish a goal and establish why you should do that goal, there should be multiple layers.
Yeah, yeah,
There should be like a multifaceted reason why you're doing something because like when you're trying to do something, you want like a lot of reasons. Back to where you're saying like positive and negatives, like you want a lot of negatives that like kind of push you towards that goal, and a lot of positives that you can have after you reach that goal. So I feel like it kind of ties in what you said earlier too.
yeah. And actually, you just reminded me of something else,
Mm,
and it reminded me of something good that kind of combines both of the aspects that we were talking about. Because I definitely agree with that. You know what I mean? Like, and using family as an example is kind of extreme, anyways,
mm,
because family is like something that's so like
yeah,
important to many people.
yeah.
And like, you know, if your family wants to do something, and a lot of people say I do this for my family, that's like a really common thing. So I'm not trying to say there's an issue with that, but I'm saying there's an issue if like I'm talking about like a specific kind of case.
Mm,
You know what I mean? But like generally, I don't see that as being an issue. And something that I just got reminded of, let's say as a little kid, right? Your parents tell you to brush your teeth.
mm,
You're like, "Oh, I don't want to brush my teeth. What the fuck?" And then let's say every time your parents tell you to brush your teeth, you brush your teeth.
mm,
All right. Let's say now your parents fall asleep before you. You go, "Oh, I was only brushing my teeth because my parents told me to. I'm
mm,
not brushing my teeth anymore." In that aspect, you were only doing it because they said to, not because you saw the value in it yourself. But
mm,
then let's say over time, right? You only brush your teeth when your parents tell you to, and let's say you start brushing your teeth less and less because you're spending less time with them, right? You get to a point where your teeth are fucked up.
mm, yeah.
I mean, fricked up. You get
Yeah.
to a point, let's say, where you got to get surgery done to remove a tooth and this and that, and you go, "Oh wow, this is extremely negative feeling.
Mm,
I don't like this at all."
mm,
And so you tell yourself, "Now I'm gonna brush my teeth and do it for me."
mm,
And also, you remember that your parents want you to do it. And now it's like, I understand why my parents want me to do it.
mm.
I feel like if you do it for your family, you should also understand why you should do it.
But okay. That's a weird.
It is weird, right? But
Okay,
I'm
that's a.
talking about like over time though, it
Mm,
becomes both. Like
mm,
it becomes my family wants me to do this and I want to do it.
okay. But the thing is, like, the parents could have told you why. Like,
Yeah, but like if you don't really fuck with that or you don't think it's gonna happen to you, that's a really common thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
people say like, "Oh, don't cross the road because you can get hit by a car."
Mm-hmm.
Shit, I'll cross the road anyways and say it's not gonna happen to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I don't know maybe how real that is. A lot of people feel like these things can't happen to me. These things happen to other people. They don't happen to me, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
I get that. But
But
it's like
go on though.
I don't know because like
I
the thing is like
don't feel like that was a perfect example, so like let's let's talk about it.
cause like okay, so you're saying so what you're saying is that like you need to do things for you. Like you need like it shouldn't be like an external
In
reason.
a way, and to tie back on what you said again, even if you do it for your family and you actually said it yourself that like another reason to even want to do things is for feelings of like compassion
Mm-hmm.
and love and intimacy. Like those are things that are valid reasons for lots of people to even want to do things. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to feel like loved,
Yeah.
right? So if you want to do it for your parents because it'll make you feel loved, then you're still doing it for yourself in a way
Mm-hmm.
because you feel like this will make your parents happy,
Mm-hmm.
which would make you happy.
Okay.
So it's like a mutual relationship. So therefore what they want becomes what you want because of that,
Okay.
not just because they want you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you do end up wanting to do it. Even if you tell yourself, I don't want to do this shit, right? At the end of the day, you say, well, I do because it's going to make me feel like this and it's going to make them feel like this and the relationship's going to be like this.
Okay.
Maybe. I feel like that ties it in a little bit.
That's different because
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's different because like okay, you want to get stronger for you for their family, and that in turn helps you out. The thing is, like as a child, you're not really like you can't even really think that far. But I feel like we can still teach that.
Maybe not, but sometimes, like, as a child, you can't think that far, as in, like, you can't explain that yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? But sometimes, I mean, like, kids' behavior, they can't explain why they do anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But, like, when you think about it, you can, like, find little reasons for things, like, well, why would they like to do this? And, like, you can understand behavior without explaining it,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps.
I don't know, because okay, you can take a child like a child learns things like so
Yeah.
like they have the
Big
ability to
brain.
learn. Yeah. So they
Sorry,
know that.
time check? Okay,
Okay.
continue.
So like they have the ability to learn things, and they have the ability to learn things, and the parents can really like kind of go in depth about the negativity, like the negative factors of doing this. Like, hey, teaching it, like you brought out. And like I feel like the child can like, okay, like I won't do that anymore. Um, and like it doesn't like the punishment doesn't have to be the reason why they do it. They can just like, oh, like okay, I know this will happen. I don't want that to happen. And there's like two people. Like there's like one person like normally like they get there and like, oh, that's why you shouldn't do it. Or like they normally heed someone's they heed the device they heed the advice of others and they just don't do it. They don't have to get to the punishment and for that be the reason why they don't do it anymore.
True.
So like I get what you're saying, but like you can definitely I don't know, I kind of like lost what I'm being so
All right, well, it's okay. We'll still talk about that
yeah,
though, man.
yeah, it's crazy.
She's crazy. Yeah.
Uh,
All right. I would definitely say though that like with that example, you can say that it might take somebody to actually get the punishment to like learn to not do it, and it might take knowing of a punishment for someone not to do it. But I think the idea of the punishment is what I think. Yeah, for that other person who doesn't get that far, the idea of the punishment is still what turned them off from doing it. They say, "Oh, I don't want to find out." The other person maybe is skeptical about it, and it takes finding out. You know, it takes them to find out for them to really believe it and feel like, oh shit, okay, this is real. But another person might believe it already, but it's still the same thing because neither of them want that thing, right?
but it's like okay, and like kind of paying back of what you just said, like you shouldn't. So the person that has to experience pain to not do it again, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with them. Not like you're like, oh, they're terrible.
Well, some people are like that on a very like low key basis.
Yeah,
You know what I
and like
mean? Like,
and, and it's like okay, but like you need to. That's a skill that not getting because you don't listen or like you don't think other people's advice is like of value, and you fall because of that, and like you get to the point like okay, I learned that lesson, and like you keep having to lose to win. Like you can just
Yeah.
win just based off other people's advice, and you don't have to go through all that struggle.
I agree, but I will say, and I agree with that even for me,
Mm,
right? Like for what you just said, that's fine for me,
mm,
right? But I'm trying to think of like other people who are in like very difficult situations.
mm,
We can even talk about relationships, right? Where people will say, "Oh, this person is not good for you.
mm,
This person's not good for you." But like, let's say you've been with them for such a long period of time. Like, there's something that's built there that's actually like there might be reasons to not want to walk away from it. You know what I mean? And then to that, I would say like even those that others ah when other people give you that advice, it's
mm,
not as simple as just immediately take it. You might have to like continue like building with that and figuring out. And
okay.
it might cause more hurt. That might be something you endure,
Mm,
but it might fix. It might become better. I think it really depends, and it's really case by case for that kind of thing.
yeah.
So I just think of that as like an exception.
And it's kind of like love is an addiction. Love is an addiction. So like it's definitely you have to build like a really sufficient like negatives and positives of this situation I'm in that I'm trying to end.
I think for a
Yeah.
situation like that, at least even having a discussion, like how we're having this general discussion now,
Mm-hmm.
having it sitting down and having a specific discussion about that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, I think is really valuable. I think to like, talk about or to even think about it, like even if it's another thing that the book that I read talks about
Mm-hmm.
is how whenever you think about something that your brain will automatically try to find a solution, right? All you have to do is give yourself the time to think about it. And that could be good and that can be bad. Like you could try to say, what are all the negative things this person has done to me? And your brain will come up with some things.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, you could think, and what the book suggests, instead of thinking of like, oh, what are all the negatives of the situation? Because your brain will come up with a bunch, right? If I think, oh, what are all the negative things that I get from this? I'll come up with a lot of things. But instead to think like, oh, how can I fix this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Let your brain come up with those kind of things. And I think like having to think about that will be really helpful for you. Or I mean not you, but like you in general. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? To have to think about like that.
Yeah, and I think you should whenever in an argument, I think you should you should try to disprove yourself and like
Oh, we got a viewer.
oh
Oh my god.
my god,
Any comments?
finally.
Oh man.
We're gonna get so rich.
Yeah, we're making money.
No, but like I think we're trying to, do any argument or find a reason to do anything. I think it's a good job to look at both sides to find the truth. The truth.
That's what I say. That's what I would say too. And I agree with that a lot.
Mm,
And sometimes there isn't a truth, but a decided truth is
mm,
sometimes just as important,
yeah.
right? Because like, let's say things are kind of black and white. Like there is no like right and wrong between two people about like how they feel, right? If we're talking about an argument, right? But to decide on a truth for you guys to share,
Mm,
I feel like there's a lot of value and peace in that kind of thing.
yeah. It breeds some stability and it gives order. Like, hey, like here's a standard we're gonna abide by. It's not the best standard in the world, but at least we agree on it and we don't have to argue about
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Here, let's start an argument so we can give them an example. All right, man, fuck you, this, fuck that. All right. Hey, fuck you and your big ass biceps.
it. Oh my god,
I
you're objectifying.
will say right now though that every time you twist your arm, bro.
it's it's a little twist. I feel like I'm asleep again, like low key. Like I was
Uh,
looking at the camera, I was like, bro, like I don't look like I work out, but look. Newbie, not newbie. Newbie, not.
yeah, me too. And if I go, wait, what's a really? I was like, if I get into a really weird slouchy posture,
Yeah, loose with a that's loose with a capital.
or if I just sit like this. All right, guys. So what are we discussing today?
Wait,
Uh,
this is not a discussion. This is a fucking topic.
so one point. So right here on right there on our agenda, it says, all right. what are some topics that we can touch more on? Oh yeah, I would like to talk to you about. We talked about this briefly. We talked about purpose a little bit,
Mhm.
but I want to ask you, what does that mean to you? Do you feel like you have one? And what is it if you would like to share? You don't have to share. You can just talk about um, purpose in general. If you feel like you don't even want to dive into what's your purpose, right?
I don't want to.
That's just personal. My purpose is to get money, bitches, and cars.
No, like okay, purpose is like it's a reason to do something.
I'm sorry, but take a look real quick. Go
It's
on.
like it's just that's my purpose. Me personally,
So,
that's
what's your purpose?
I think I think purpose is functionality. There's a reason to live, a reason to suffer, or not to suffer, to endorse and to endure suffering.
Sure.
And there's a lot of different. There's a lot of purpose to life because there's a lot of lifestyles and walks of life. Um, you know, but I think purpose for me is just seeing how far it can go. Like life is it's very valuable. It can be taken away so easily. So I think trying to reach my high score. Like when I'm on my deathbed, I'm like, I did. Like
Hmm.
that was a really good ride. Um, and it's like, just spreading positivity. Um, and it's like why spread positivity. I feel like negativity is very easy to come by. The world is like it's not all bad, but it can be a bad place. And
Yeah.
like just kind of like gravity, a lot of things just kind of pull you down. And I think it's very easy to just to get in that mindset and get in
Yeah.
that mindset of just negativity.
And that's what I said. Like when you
Yeah,
start thinking about things, like your brain will come up with more things.
yeah,
You start thinking negatively, it'll snowball. Like it'll happen. That's why it's also good to talk about these things because you can get grounded by talking to someone else without having to rely on somebody else. If we're talking about self improvement, that doesn't mean that you need to figure it all out by yourself.
yeah,
Sometimes talking to something about somebody else can fix like a because even like anybody who's trying the best for themselves and doing this and that, like you can still think of things in a wrong way. That doesn't mean you're going to be a perfect thinker and everything. It's really hard to be objective about yourself and the things around you.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So sometimes it just takes somebody like reminding you of this or shrinking something down or telling you this is actually bigger than you think or just leveling you out. You know what I mean?
yeah. And, like, I think advice is very important. Even the most notorious generals of like history had advisors because like they know they can't do it on their own. So I feel like you know having people that gives you advice helps you. And like people are like boxers. Like you're a boxer inside the box, and you can't really see your label, and but only other people
Wow.
can. So like it's very important to have trusted people or friends to kind of tell you like when you're like kind of fucking up.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
really important. And actually, I want to further go into how important do you think it is to surround yourself to surround yourself by the right people? And I think based on what you said, I can already predict your answer. But to hear more about that,
So like
that is really important.
yeah, I think it really is like kind of like a rotting apple. Like when you put a rotting apple in front of
Yeah.
like all the good apples, all the other good apples rot with it. So I think it's very important. Like again, you're only so strong. You need a good support system. You need someone that can help you through like hard times and like you know people influence you, good or bad. And I think it's really it's positive to have good people in your life so you can be influenced positively.
Mm, yeah. Wow, I think you did that topic way better than I could have by myself. Very good. Um, yeah. Do you ever see yourself telling yourself like maybe I could be hanging around more people like this or less people like this or
I think, well, like whenever I get like a new social environment, so like high school, I did a lot of like, man, like,
drugs? I'm sorry.
don't tell them about
My bad.
that. No, no. So like whenever I get like a new social environment, so like high school, I start by like, who should I hang out with?
Right, okay.
And I gotten better with that over time. So like,
Yeah, everyone.
it's like
Yeah.
college. I'm like, okay, I know my people already, and I know when I see it. So like, it was a better. I don't have a lot of situations where like
you're
I
with like
should.
the wrong people.
Yeah, because I know
You
what
kind of
people
like
like. Yeah, I know I know the type of people I want to hang around, so I don't have to like really think about like is she right? Is he right? Like
I know what you mean. It's
yeah,
almost like in the way that you carry yourself, like you know, you attract similar people anyways.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like you don't put yourself in a situation where you have trouble with that.
yeah,
I understand that because it's like if you see somebody who's somewhat problematic, it's unlikely that you get along with them anyways. So it's unlikely that you end up being friends with them for years, and then you think, "Oh shit, this is kind of awkward. Like, should I be
yeah,
hanging on this?" You know what I mean? Like that's prevented altogether.
yeah. I feel that. Like it's weird. Like I noticed this by myself. Like I'm normally very not quiet, but I'm observant when I get like a new area,
Yep, yep.
and
Think,
and it's like I don't want to get in a situation where I'm like, okay, like I just talk to just anyone, and now they're in my social, like in my social circle. But now I realize, like, oh my gosh, like you're crazy, like you're a little bit crazy, and I have to like disconnect with them, and that's very awkward in itself. So
yeah,
like I'm very like okay, like
you got a
what?
review process.
Yeah, exactly. Like what type of energy do you are you giving me? So like yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know, and I give
that's
everyone a
really important.
chance. I give everyone a chance, but it's like
I think it makes sense, like if you really treat yourself, because self-improvement, we're talking about making ourselves like the best versions of ourselves. So if we see ourselves as like very well, like established, important, if you see yourself as an important person, it makes sense that you would care and like think like that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, let's say you have somebody that you love. Like, you know, let's say you have a kid, right? And you would be very for the people that they hang out around, you would kind of like look at them and just kind of like see like, is this the right person for my kid to be hanging around?
yeah,
Whether or not that's something you would say, like it's something that like if there's somebody who's really close to you and you see them with somebody else, you just start to think like, is this a good person for this person to be
yeah,
around? Whether that's the exact mind thought that comes to mind or not, like
yeah,
that's the kind of like initial vibe I think that's like any person kind of gets.
yeah, and like
So I think it's good to apply that to yourself, by the way, and continue.
yeah, yeah, and I agree with your point, and you know, like not as much as we were as kids, but I feel like anyone's like impressionable. Like you can definitely change. That might be harder as you get older.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but like I feel like you know if you get around the wrong people, you can definitely change for the worse or the better if you vice versa for good people.
yeah.
So I definitely agree on that.
And to go back on like what you genuinely believe and how that affects you,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you hang around people who do things that are, let's say, like just bad things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the only people around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think, oh, that's normal. And
Yeah.
over time, you genuinely believe like these things are normal. I'm not doing these. I'm abnormal,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it conditions you to kind of act a certain way.
Yeah.
So just on the way that you said, like how impressionable you can be, I'd say, yeah, especially when you genuinely believe something.
Yeah.
Like if I would say another good example is even being here at UF.
Mm-hmm.
You might not think like being here, and I don't mean you specifically, I just mean generally, like somebody might not think that being here makes them feel like they want to study more and they want to do this and they want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people do have that, but like I feel like some people will think like, no, it makes me like anxious, it makes me nervous. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely people like that. Like being here and seeing how well everyone else does, it makes me feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that before,
Yeah.
right? And to them, I would say like you could also see it this way, like it makes you feel bad, but in a way, that's because like a high standard is normalized,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're let's say you're really close to the high standard, but you feel like, oh, I'm not here where everyone else is.
Mm-hmm.
So then you could feel bad. But there's still so much good around being in a kind of environment like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like me alone, I might have not gone to study in the library if I didn't know that was such a normal thing to do, right? I might just say I'll study in my dorm, right? But hearing everybody, oh, I'm going to the library, I'm going to the library, I'm doing this, right? And believing like, okay, this is a good thing to do, and then end up going to the library and getting so much work done. You know what I mean? Like being around things like that. Um, I forget the main point,
Mm-hmm.
but
No, yeah,
that's what I'm
people that
saying.
can
Like,
influence you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that
Yeah,
it makes it impressionable. Like, it influences you in a good way.
yeah,
Being around, like, that's how your environment affects you. My point, yeah. My point is in the way that your environment and the people around you can influence you without you even thinking about it.
mm-hmm.
So, like, I think, like, oh, I'm going to the library. That's my decision. I'm doing this. That's my decision. But then to think of if you really, like, analyze yourself and you really think about these things, Why did I go to the library? Maybe this person invited me to go one day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like maybe I didn't just happen to stroll in there by myself. Maybe somebody invited me there. Maybe everyone always is at the library.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Marston, that's part of like UF culture. Like you
Yeah.
just got to be there. You know what I mean? But to make something that's good for you so normal makes it way more likely for you to improve. Versus when something bad for you is so normal, it makes you much more likely to do the opposite. And I think that is my main point. I think I've kind of tied it together. So
Yeah, and
it's a
like,
really interesting way to think
and,
about it.
and just kind of tagging back what you just said, like earlier on,
No, no,
you
don't
said
copy
that.
what I said.
No, like
Go on.
back to like what you were talking about earlier, like whenever you hang around like a certain group of people, it becomes a normality,
Yeah, I
and
think that's a really strong point.
like when you're like if you're around like not so when you're around people that are not being productive, you're um you're rationalizing that too. That back
Yeah,
to your thing, like you're like, oh, you can find a reason for everything, like if you think hard enough.
exactly. And
So
and just to interrupt really quickly, and you wouldn't even think necessarily like I'm gonna be less productive. It just happens,
yeah,
right? And that's why I'm saying that like these are things that people don't even often think about, but are real examples of how these things would affect you.
yeah,
Because if everyone's just chilling, you go, I'm just gonna chill. Everyone does homework for an hour. Okay, I'm gonna do homework now.
mm,
You're not thinking, holy shit, there are people who do homework for 12 hours a day. There are people who do this and that, right? You think, oh, I gotta do homework for 3 hours today.
mm,
Oh my God, that's way too much. That's not a normal amount. Like
yeah,
that's more than to ask for. But
yeah,
no, you don't see like if you hang out with the people who are so above and beyond,
yeah,
it'll almost make you feel bad at how much you should be doing, which I'm not saying you have to feel bad. I'm just saying that that's almost like a whoa, like
yeah.
it's a lot.
It is, like I feel like once you're like when you get around like new people that are good for you, you have to dismantle old habits to become newer. Kind of like a phoenix, weirdly enough. That sounds like kind of corny.
No, no, go on.
Like you have to destroy something to build something new. So if you have a bad foundation, you have to build a better foundation. So you build better.
It's kind of like your muscles.
Talk your
When
shit.
you when
Talk.
you break them down, you got to break them down to build them back up.
Yeah.
Actually, it's kind of not the same exact example, but it's the idea as they're not strong enough to handle this load.
Yeah.
So over time, that load damaged it. It wasn't strong enough to handle it. But next, it gets a little stronger, and now it can handle it, right? I guess the load, pause.
Yo.
I guess the load is the new people, right? That are like at such a high standard. You get introduced to them, and it's a lot for you. But then over time, it conditions, and it's no longer a lot for you. Now
Yeah.
this is the new normal. I think that I kind of works
No,
now.
yeah, no, that works. I mean, it's
At first it
that
was a reach, but I think it came together.
the gym can be utilized as like so many like analogies, like
It's a really interesting mental thing, really.
yeah, and you know what? The body mind connection. A lot of things that is applied to the body can be applied to the mind. A lot of things that can be applied to the mind can be applied to the body. If you feel unconfident, your body will show it. If you
Yes.
feel sick, you'll probably have not so happy thoughts like, "Damn, I'm sick." Fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm,
Part of the book that I was reading talked about stuff like that too.
yeah.
That like even if you're these are things that people know, like, oh, if you smile for a while, like it'll make you happier, right? If you sit up, if you hold yourself with a really like important high, like, if you treat yourself like, oh, I'm tired, you're gonna feel tired, right? If you're energetic, if you hold yourself like boom, then you're more likely to exhibit those feelings as
Yeah.
well. you know, that there really is like connections to those things and how you are. Because your body has for so long associated those things by itself.
Yeah.
Like as a baby, you find something funny and the baby laughs,
Mhm.
right? Who taught the baby to do that? Nothing. That's like proof that your body has physical reactions to things that you perceive and the other way around. The things that you perceive can change how you physically are.
Yeah.
So I think like that shouldn't be undermined. That shouldn't be like, oh no, I'm not happy. So why am I gonna smile to be happy?
Yeah.
Right? But it doesn't just say like smile and you'll instantly be happy, right?
Yeah.
But it's saying to like carry yourself in a more positive way and you will feel that way. You can be there's people that we've seen, I don't mean like you and me, but I just mean like overall, like people in the world that we've seen that are like, did you even try to be happy? Like try to like just
Like, come
loosen
on,
up,
yeah,
like
try.
shit.
Like, damn.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's all it takes really. The book that I was reading says next time you're outside and you got to get somewhere, instead of running or instead of like walking, they say to skip.
Mm-hmm.
And they say to skip not only because it's easier on your joints than running. Okay,
Yeah.
great point. Another one is because it'll make you feel like stupid. It'll make you feel silly, right?
Yeah.
It'll like and
It'll loosen you up. Yeah.
another reason is that they said is that other people will look at you like, what the fuck? It's kind of like laugh. Like, what if you looked down here and you saw you and me? So let's say someone perceives us as two buff dudes skipping down the rights, holding hands and shit. I'm like, what is
What the
going on?
fuck?
You know, and that moment of laughter is like enough to kind of like lift somebody's mood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's all it takes.
Yeah.
So they're talking about to not even just do it for yourself, to go around skipping, do it for you and do it for other people. Like
Yeah.
the energy that you put out really is the energy you exhibit, and it's could be contagious as well.
Yeah.
They've talked about like how like some people's laughters are extremely contagious. You know, when you see someone like absolutely enjoying things and laughing, and like it just makes you want to do that too.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like back to what you were saying with the body.
Yep. Continue.
Like it's like when you're what can I say? Like when you're so like when you're I'm gonna reference that quick. Like it's not reference wrap it up. But like
Yeah, we have work to do, guys.
that like I'm talking about self improvement. Like no, but
We have the actual self improvement to be doing.
no, but like when, like the body when you assume a certain posture, you feel something,
Yeah.
and it kind of goes back to like fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like
that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of this.
yeah, so it's like when you mimic something, you eventually become that thing you're mimicking. So
Yeah,
it's like it's really like kind of it gives hope to people. Like, oh, I'm not a gym person. Like, well, if you act like a gym person, you'll one day
exactly.
become a gym
You
person.
know? And I didn't say fake it till you make it only because like I feel like there's like a negative connotation to saying like fake it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it really is such like a valuable thing that I don't even want to say like fake it, right? Just to like in a way that is what you're doing, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But it's not fake because like we talked about earlier, at any moment you can decide to be a certain way. You can say, I want to be happy. I'm gonna be happy right now. And even if you're not instantly happy, like by doing that, you really are like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
more conscious and it's more like real than fake, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can
That's
practice until you master. So like you're practicing like
yeah.
like micro behaviors
And
of
that's
happiness.
that kind of has a ring to it. Practice till you master this.
Yeah.
It still has a little ring.
No, but like yeah. So like whenever you're practicing being happy, you're practicing like micro behaviors of a happy person.
Exactly.
Eventually, like you'll get so good at doing those micro behaviors, you
Yes.
eventually become the behavior.
Literally that. And also, yeah, I agree with that so much. But also another thing is that literally that and plus what we talked about earlier, the physical literal link to emotions and physical like
Mm.
I've heard before that it's extremely hard to like not show emotion on your face when it comes to certain things.
Mm.
Right? Like I can keep a straight face like a lot of the time if I want to.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people can do that if they want, right? But let's say you're feeling happy and somebody tells you something incredibly negative,
Mm.
right? Some kind of shift, like if anything,
A
is
little
gonna
split or
happen.
something. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or a more normal example is if someone makes you laugh. Like, okay, like you'll smile. Like you don't. There are times where you smile because you feel like, oh, that's funny. I'm gonna smile,
Mm.
and you're so used to that. But so there's other times where even if you absolutely control it, or you absolutely restrict it, or
Mm.
try your best to, that you can't.
Yeah.
You know, there's actual like literal links to these kind of things. So to actually think about that, plus micro behaviors and things like that,
Mm.
like I feel like it should make somebody more positive and more keen, more eager to try
New things.
practicing
Yeah. Hopefully.
this thing
Yeah.
specifically and
Because you
new
can
things.
acquire it. Yeah.
Yeah. And any final words, I guess, as we try to wrap this up.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, that like
Yeah.
like doing any conclusion on any paper or anything.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
like fucking stuff.
I know something we can do to finish up though.
Yeah.
Skip.
Skip.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip like to the okay.
You skip with me?
Yes, I'll skip. I'll skip.
Skip to me. Okay, I'll stand right here.
Like, hey.
I'll stand right here and you better skip this way. You know, this clip is gonna be saved and sent to all of our friends,
Really?
baby.
Where are we skipping to?
Oh, Yeah.
In the video. In the
We are gonna start from that window,
that
and
window.
we're gonna come back down.
Come back down.
We're gonna go. We're gonna go there, and we're gonna come back to the camera. Hey, hey, remember? Yeah, no, they can't. This is gonna. You're gonna feel. This is far as fuck. This is gonna make you feel so good inside, Jesse. Once you believe that, you'll feel that. We hold hands. Only if you want to.
Yeah.
All right. Doing it. Ready? All right. I don't know the rhythm. Okay, ready? You see it works. That's what I mean. No, that shit made me laugh. It made him laugh, and it's making you laugh too. See, that's the thing though. If you want to actually be completely positive and bright, sometimes you gotta also see yourself less seriously and do some weird ass shit. Never doing that again. Goodbye.